The ice moon Velrath 7 was a place where nothing should live. The temperatures dropped to -90 degrees during the long night cycle. The winds carried ice that could cut through metal. The snow fell so thick that a person could get lost 3 steps from their door. And yet, the Galactic Union had built a research station here, because the universe was full of creatures who wanted to understand things that wanted to kill them. Yuna stood at the observation window and watched the white world outside. She was 28 years old, small by human standards. With black hair she kept tied back, and eyes that her colleagues said were too soft for a scientist. She was a xenobiologist, which meant she studied alien life. She had come to Velrath 7 to research the ice worms that lived beneath the frozen surface. But today, she was not thinking about ice worms. She was thinking about the distress signal. It had come in 3 hours ago. A ship had crashed somewhere in the frozen wastes, about 12 kilometers from the station. The signal was weak, and getting weaker. The station's sensors had picked up life signs, 2 large ones and 3 small ones. Yuna had brought this information to Commander Vreth immediately. Commander Vreth was a Kelvari, one of the reptilian species that held high positions in the Galactic Union. He was tall, covered in green scales, and his yellow eyes never seemed to blink. Like all Kelvari, he was cold-blooded. His body did not make its own heat. He needed warm rooms and heated floors to survive. The idea of going outside on Velrath 7 was death to him. He had listened to Yuna's report with no expression on his scaled face. The ship's identification codes mark it as Raxar, he had said. Yuna had felt her stomach tighten. The Raxar were a predator species. They looked like massive wolves that walked on 2 legs, with silver fur and golden eyes and teeth that could bite through bone. They were feared across the galaxy. They were currently at war with 3 different species in the Galactic Union. They had killed thousands. There are small life signs, Yuna had said. Cubs, children. Commander Vreth had turned his cold yellow eyes to her. Raxar cubs grow into Raxar warriors. Every cub we save today becomes a soldier who kills Union citizens tomorrow. They're children, Yuna had repeated. They are enemy combatants by species classification, Vreth had replied. No rescue will be sent. Let nature take its course. And that had been the end of the discussion. Now Yuna stood at the window, watching the blizzard rage outside, and she could not stop thinking about those 3 small life signs. Cubs. Babies, alone in the cold, waiting for help that would never come. She heard footsteps behind her. It was Take, her colleague and friend. He was a human like her, an engineer who kept the station running. He was tall and serious, with worried eyes that got more worried whenever Yuna had a certain look on her face. She had that look now. Don't, Take said. I didn't say anything. You don't have to. I know what you're thinking. He came to stand beside her at the window. It's 12 kilometers through a killing blizzard. Your thermal suit isn't rated for that distance in these conditions. And even if you got there, they're Raxar. They might eat you. They're cubs. They're predator cubs. Even young Raxar have teeth and claws. Their instinct is to attack anything that isn't pack. Yuna said nothing. She just watched the snow. Take sighed. The adults are probably already dead. The sensors showed their life signs fading fast. Raxar are warm-blooded like us. But they're not built for this kind of cold. By morning they'll all be frozen. Then I have until morning. Yuna. Take grabbed her arm. Listen to me. I understand that you care. That's one of the things I respect about you. But this is not a situation where caring helps. If you go out there, you will die. And even if you somehow survive, you'll be bringing enemy aliens into the station. Vreth will have you arrested. The Union might charge you with treason. They're children, Take. They're Raxar children. Do you know what Raxar do to prisoners? Do you know what they did to the colonists on Verath Prime? Yuna finally turned to look at him. Her eyes were calm and sad. Do you know what humans do to prisoners? Do you know what we did to each other before we reached the stars? We had wars, Take. We had genocide. We had cruelty that would make the Raxar look gentle. And yet, somewhere along the way, we decided that children are innocent. That children deserve protection, even if their parents are monsters. That's different. Those were human children. Why is it different? Take opened his mouth. Then he closed it. He did not have an answer. Yuna turned back to the window. I'm not asking you to come with me. I'm not asking anyone to help. But I am going. The other species won't understand, Take said quietly. The Kelvari can't go outside. They'd freeze in minutes. The Velans are too small. The Dreth don't have the right body structure. Humans are the only ones on this station who could even attempt it, and when they find out that a human risked her life to save Raxar cubs, they're going to think we're insane. Yuna smiled slightly. Humans have always confused the other species. They think we're too soft because we don't have scales or claws. They think we're too weak because we're small and fragile. They don't understand why we cry at sad stories or laugh at silly jokes or get attached to creatures that aren't our own species. She pressed her hand against the cold glass of the window. But that's exactly why I have to go. Because I'm human. Because humans are the ones who adopt stray animals and feed birds in winter and cry when baby animals die in nature documentaries. We can't help it. It's who we are. Take was silent for a long moment. Then he reached into his pocket and pulled out a small device. Emergency beacon. If you get into trouble, activate it. I'll come for you. Yuna took the beacon. Thank you. Don't thank me. I still think you're going to die out there. He paused. But if you don't go, I think something inside you will die anyway, and I don't want to see that. Yuna hugged him. Then she walked away to prepare. The station's equipment room was quiet at this hour. Yuna pulled on her thermal suit layer by layer. The suit was designed for short trips outside, not long journeys. She added extra heating packs. She checked her oxygen supply. She loaded emergency rations and medical supplies into her pack. The whole time, she kept thinking about those 3 small life signs on the sensor screen. Getting weaker. Getting colder. She thought about what Vreth had said, that Raxar cubs grow into Raxar warriors, that every cub she saved today would become a killer tomorrow. Maybe he was right. Maybe she was making a terrible mistake. Maybe she was going to die in the snow for creatures who would never thank her, who would grow up to hate her species, who would forget that a human once walked into a blizzard to save them. But she also thought about something her grandmother had told her once. Back on Earth, when Yuna was just a little girl, kindness is not a transaction, her grandmother had said. You don't give it to get something back. You give it because of who you are, not because of who they are. Yuna finished suiting up. She took a deep breath. Then she walked to the airlock, entered the codes, and stepped out into the killing white. The cold hit her like a fist. But she kept walking. The world was white. White above, white below, white in every direction. The wind screamed so loud that Yuna could not hear her own breathing inside her helmet. The snow fell so thick that she could not see more than 2 meters ahead. Each step was a battle. The snow came up to her knees, sometimes her waist. Her thermal suit worked hard to keep her warm, but she could feel the cold pressing in from all sides. Hungry and patient, Yuna followed the signal on her wrist device. 12 kilometers. In normal conditions, she could walk that in 2 hours. In this blizzard, it would take much longer. She did not let herself think about how long. She just focused on putting one foot in front of the other. The heating packs she had attached to her suit began to fade after the first hour. She had brought extras, but she could not stop to replace them. Stopping meant death. The cold was waiting for any moment of weakness. She thought about the cubs, 3 small life signs. She imagined them huddled together in the wreckage of their ship, cold and scared, not understanding why no one was coming to help. Did Raxar cubs cry? Did they call for their parents? Did they understand that they were dying? Yuna pushed harder through the snow. Her legs began to burn. Her lungs ached from breathing the cold air that made it through her suit's filters. Her fingers were numb inside her gloves. The temperature outside was minus 87 degrees. Her suit was rated for minus 70. She was already past the safety limit, and she was not even halfway there. She fell once, twice, 3 times. Each time, she forced herself back up. The snow tried to hold her down. The wind tried to push her back. But Yuna was stubborn in a way that only humans could be. She was small and soft and fragile, but she had something that the cold did not understand. She had a reason to keep going. After 2 hours, her suit began to send warning signals. Power was dropping. Heating systems were struggling. Her oxygen supply was still good. But what use was oxygen? If she froze to death, she kept walking. The signal grew stronger. She was getting closer. 3 kilometers, 2. And then, through the wall of white, she saw it. The ship was half buried in snow, torn open like a wounded animal. It had crashed hard. Pieces of metal were scattered across the ice. The design was unmistakably Raxar sharp angles, dark colors, built for war. But this ship would never fly again. Yuna approached carefully. Her heart was pounding. She knew that Raxar were dangerous, that even injured adults could kill with a single swipe of their claws, but the sensor had shown the adult life signs fading hours ago. By now, they were probably dead. She climbed through a tear in the hull and entered the ship. Inside, it was dark and cold. Her suit's light cut through the shadows. She saw equipment she did not recognize. Storage containers spilled open. Frozen food scattered on the floor, and she saw blood. Dark Raxar blood, frozen into ice on the metal walls. She followed the blood trail to the back of the ship, and there, she found them. The 2 adult Raxar were massive, even in death. They lay curled around each other, their silver fur covered in frost, their golden eyes open and empty. They had been beautiful once, Yuna thought, powerful and proud. Now they were just bodies in the cold, but they had not died running. They had not died fighting. They had died protecting. Beneath their frozen bodies, tucked into the small space between them, were the cubs, 3 of them, each about the size of a large dog. Their silver fur was matted with ice. Their small bodies were pressed together, trying to share what little warmth remained. Their eyes were closed. For a terrible moment, Yuna thought she was too late. Then one of them moved. Just a tiny shift, a small whimper. Then another opened its eyes, golden. Like the adults, but dimmer, clouded with cold and fear. They saw her, even dying, even frozen. They bared their teeth. Small growls came from their throats. Their instincts told them she was not pack, not family, not safe. She was other. She was threat. Yuna knelt in the frozen blood of their parents and did not move. "It's okay," she said softly. Her voice was strange in the silence of the ship. "I'm not going to hurt you. I'm here to help." The cubs did not understand her words. But something in her tone, something in the way she did not attack, made them pause. Their growls faded to whimpers. They were too cold and too weak to fight. Yuna looked at them and made a decision. She unzipped her thermal suit's outer layer. The cold rushed in immediately. It was like being stabbed with 1,000 frozen needles. Her body screamed at her to close the suit, to protect herself, to survive. But Yuna ignored it. She reached down and picked up the first cub. It tried to bite her. Its small teeth scraped against her glove, but it was too weak to do real damage. Yuna held it gently, firmly, and tucked it inside her suit, against her chest, against her skin. The cub's frozen fur burned against her body. She gasped at the pain. But she did not let go. She picked up the second cub. This one was female, she thought. Smaller and more delicate. It whimpered when she touched it, but did not fight. She tucked it beside its sibling, against her stomach. The third cub was the smallest. When she picked it up, it did not move at all. Its body was limp, its breathing so shallow she could barely see it. This one was closest to death. Yuna pressed it against her heart. 3 Raxar cubs, tucked inside her suit, pressed against her human flesh. The cold of their bodies was stealing her warmth faster than her suit could replace it. Her core temperature was dropping. Her body was sacrificing itself to save creatures that were not her own. But that was what humans did. That was what made them human. Yuna sealed her suit as best she could and sat down with her back against the hull. She wrapped her arms around the cubs, holding them close, sharing every bit of heat her body could produce. Outside, the blizzard raged. The temperature dropped further. The night cycle was beginning, and with it came the deepest cold. Yuna knew she should try to walk back. 12 kilometers through the blizzard, carrying 3 cubs, with her suit failing and her body freezing. It was impossible. She would die before she made it halfway, so she stayed. She held the cubs and let her warmth flow into them. She felt her fingers go numb, then her toes. She felt the cold creeping into her chest, slowing her heart, but she also felt the cubs beginning to stir against her. She felt their small bodies absorbing her heat, their hearts beating stronger, their breath coming easier. They pressed closer to her, instinctively seeking the warmth. Their frozen fur began to thaw against her skin. One of them made a small sound that was almost like a purr. "That's right," Yuna whispered. "Stay warm, stay alive." The smallest cub, the one she had pressed against her heart, opened its eyes. Golden, like summer sunlight. It looked up at her with an expression she did not expect. Trust. This cub, this predator, this enemy, looked at her and saw safety, saw warmth, saw mother. Yuna smiled even as her lips went numb. "I've got you," she said. "I've got all of you." The night was long. The cold was deep. But Yuna held on. She thought about her grandmother's words. Kindness is not a transaction. You give it because of who you are. She thought about what Take had said. That the other species would think humans were insane. Maybe they were right. Maybe she was crazy. Maybe she was going to die in a crashed Raxar ship, frozen solid, with 3 enemy cubs pressed against her heart. But at least she would die warm. At least she would die human. The cubs slept against her, their small predator bodies rising and falling with each breath. Outside, the wind screamed and the snow fell and the universe was cold and uncaring. But inside Yuna's suit, inside her arms, inside her warmth, 3 children lived, and that was enough. Yuna woke to warmth she did not expect. For a moment, she thought she was dead. The cold had taken her, and this warmth was whatever came after. But then she heard voices, felt movement, and realized she was lying on something soft, a bed, a medical bed. She opened her eyes. The ceiling above her was the familiar gray of the Velrath 7 station. Medical lights blinked. Machines hummed. She was alive. She tried to sit up, but her body refused. Everything hurt. Her fingers, her toes, her chest, all of it burned with the deep ache of flesh that had nearly frozen. Then she remembered the cubs. "The cubs," she tried to say, but her voice was a broken whisper. "Where are the cubs?" A face appeared above her. Take. His eyes were red, like he had not slept in a long time. But he was smiling. "They're alive," he said. "All 3 of them. They're in the containment room. They won't stop crying." Yuna felt tears on her cheeks. She did not know if they were from relief or exhaustion or something else entirely. "How?" she asked. Take sat down beside her bed. "I tracked your signal. When you didn't move for 3 hours, I knew something was wrong. I took the rescue crawler out into the storm, found you in the wreckage, nearly frozen solid, with 3 Raxar cubs pressed against your body like you were their mother." He shook his head. "Your core temperature was 29 degrees. You should be dead, Yuna. The doctors don't understand how you survived." "I'm stubborn," Yuna whispered. "You're insane," Take replied. But there was no anger in his voice, only wonder. "When I pulled you out of there, the cubs wouldn't let go of you. They bit me when I tried to separate them. I had to carry all 4 of you together." Yuna smiled weakly. "They're good cubs. They're Raxar cubs. The whole station is in an uproar. Vreth wants to put them in isolation cells. The Dreth scientists want to study them. The Velans are terrified. They keep saying that the Raxar will come for revenge, that we've started a war. They're children." "I know." Take took her hand. "I know they are. But the others don't see it that way." Yuna forced herself to sit up, ignoring the pain. "Take me to them," You need rest. Take me to them, take. He looked at her for a long moment. Then he nodded and helped her into a wheelchair. The station was busy as they moved through the corridors. Aliens of different species stopped to stare at Yuna. Some looked at her with confusion. Others with fear. A few looked at her with something that might have been respect, though they would never admit it. The containment room was in the science wing. 2 armed guards stood outside Kelvari soldiers with weapons drawn. They did not look happy. She's not authorized, one of them said. She saved their lives, Tyke replied. Let her through. The guards hesitated. Then, slowly, they stepped aside. The containment room was bare metal walls, a single light, a heating unit in the corner, and in the middle of the room, huddled together in a tight ball, were the 3 cubs. They looked different now. Their silver fur had been cleaned of ice and blood. Their eyes were brighter, more alert, but they were pressed together as if the cold was still coming for them, and they were shaking. Then the largest cub lifted its head, its golden eyes fixed on Yuna, and it started to howl, not a howl of fear or anger, but a howl of recognition, of relief, of desperate, overwhelming need. The other 2 cubs joined in. The sound was loud and wild, and it shook the walls. The guards raised their weapons in alarm. But Yuna just smiled. Open the door, she said. Are you crazy? One of the guards demanded. Those are predators. Open the door. Take reached past the guard and entered the override code. The door slid open. Yuna wheeled herself into the room. The cubs were on her immediately. They climbed onto her lap, pressed against her chest, licked her face with rough tongues. They made sounds she had never heard before, whimpers and chirps and that strange purring noise. They smelled like animal fur and medical disinfectant, and something uniquely their own. Yuna held them. She buried her face in their silver fur and let them press against her. Let them feel her warmth. Let them know she was still there. It's okay, she whispered. I'm here. I'm not going anywhere. Behind her, she heard footsteps. Commander Vreth had arrived. This is unacceptable, the Kelvari commander said. His voice was cold as the ice outside. These creatures are enemy combatants. They must be contained, studied, and eventually returned to Raxar space. Or disposed of. Disposed of? Yuna turned to face him. They are Raxar. Their species has killed thousands of Union citizens. Their parents were likely warriors, possibly war criminals. These cubs carry the same genetics, the same instincts. They carry the same blood, Yuna agreed. But they're not their parents. They're not soldiers. They're babies who lost their family and almost died in the cold. They deserve a chance. A chance to do what? Grow up and kill us? A chance to be something different. Vreth made a sound of disgust. This is human sentimentality. This is weakness. The other species understand survival comes first. We do not waste resources on enemies. We do not show mercy to predators. Yuna stood up from her wheelchair. Her legs shook, but she forced herself to stay upright. The cubs clustered around her feet, still growling at Vreth. You're right, she said. This is human. This is what we are. We're the species that domesticated wolves and made them our friends. We're the species that protects baby animals even when we know they'll grow up to leave us. We're the species that cries its sad stories and gives our food to strangers and walks into blizzards to save children who aren't our own. She took a step forward. Vreth actually stepped back. You think it's weakness? You think it's sentimentality? Maybe it is. But it's also the reason we survived. It's the reason we're here. In the stars, standing beside species that are bigger and stronger and older than us. Because we don't just fight to survive. We fight to protect. We fight for things that matter, even when it doesn't make sense. The cubs had stopped growling. They were looking up at Yuna with their golden eyes. And in those eyes, she saw something that made her heart ache. They saw her as theirs. They had imprinted on her. She was their warmth, their safety, their pack. I'm not giving them up, Yuna said. You can arrest me. You can charge me with treason. But I will not let you hurt these cubs. Vreth stared at her. His yellow eyes showed nothing. Then he turned and walked away. This is not over, he said as he left. The Galactic Union will have questions. The Raxar will have questions. You have started something you cannot control, human. Yuna watched him go. Then she sank back down, exhausted, and the cubs climbed onto her lap again. Take knelt beside her. You know he's right, he said quietly. Word is going to spread. A human saved Raxar cubs. The galaxy is going to find out, and I don't know what happens after that. Yuna looked down at the cubs. The largest one was nuzzling her hand. The female was watching the door with alert, clever eyes. The smallest one had fallen asleep against her heartbeat. Just like in the ship. Then let them find out, she said. Let them know what humans do. Let them know that we walked into the cold and brought back warmth. She touched each cub gently, and in that moment, she knew she would never let them go. I'm going to name them, she said. This one is Bomb. This one is Isul. And this one, she stroked the smallest cub, the one who had been closest to death. This one is Hainul. Take smiled sadly. Those are Korean names. They're good names. They mean spring, dew, and sky. She looked up at him. They survived the winter. They deserve names that mean warmth and light. Outside the station, the blizzard had finally stopped. For the first time in days, the sky was clear. But the storm that was coming, the storm of politics and war and questions, was only just beginning. 3 weeks had passed since Yuna walked into the blizzard. 3 weeks of arguments and reports and diplomatic messages flying across the galaxy. 3 weeks of Yuna refusing to leave the cubs, sleeping in the containment room that had become their home, teaching them to trust her touch and her voice. The cubs had grown. Not much. Raxar grew slowly, but enough that Yuna could see the difference. Bomb, the largest, had become protective. He would stand between Yuna and anyone who entered the room, his small body tense and ready. Isul, the female, had become curious. She watched everything with her clever golden eyes, learning, remembering. And Hanul, the smallest, had become Yuna's shadow. He would not leave her side for even a moment. When she slept, he slept against her heart. When she woke, he was already watching her face. They had learned her smell. They had learned her voice. They had learned that when she spoke softly and touched their heads, it meant safety. They had forgotten how to be alone. Take came to visit every day. He brought food for Yuna and meat for the cubs. He told her what was happening in the galaxy outside. The news had spread, just as Vreeth had warned. A human had saved Raxar cubs. A soft, small, warm-blooded human had walked into a death blizzard to rescue the children of the galaxy's most feared predators. Some species thought it was a trick, a political move. Others thought it was insanity. A few thought it was the bravest thing they had ever heard. The Raxar had been silent, until today. Yuna was teaching Hanyul to eat from her hand when the alarm started. Red lights flashed. Warning sounds echoed through the station. The cubs pressed against Yuna's legs, growling at the noise. Take burst through the door. His face was pale. Raxar warship, he said. Just dropped out of hyperspace. It's the biggest one I've ever seen. Yuna's heart went cold. How many? 1 ship. But it could carry 1,000 warriors. Take ran a hand through his hair. Vreth is ordering battle stations. But we have almost no weapons. If they want to take the station, they can. They're not here for the station. No, Take agreed. They're here for the cubs. Or for you. Yuna looked down at Bomb, Isul, and Hanuel. They looked back at her with their golden eyes, trusting, waiting for her to tell them everything would be okay. I need to go meet them, she said. Are you insane? They'll kill you. Maybe. But if I hide, they'll tear this station apart looking for me. At least this way, I can talk to them. She knelt down and touched each cub gently. Stay here. Be brave. I'll come back. Hanuel whimpered and tried to follow her. Yuna's heart broke as she closed the door between them. The docking bay was chaos. Station personnel ran in all directions. Kelvari guards formed lines with weapons raised. Commander Vreth stood at the front, his scales pale with stress. He glared at Yuna when she arrived. "You should be in custody," he said. "I'm the one they want to see. Let me talk to them. You are not authorized. If they wanted to destroy us, we'd already be dead. They want to talk. Let me give them someone to talk to." Before Vreth could argue, the docking bay doors opened. A Raxar shuttle had landed. Its doors opened with a hiss of pressure, and from the shuttle stepped the largest Raxar Yuna had ever seen. He was ancient. His silver fur was streaked with white. Scars covered half his face, cutting through his eye, his muzzle, his neck. But his one remaining golden eye burned with intelligence and power. He wore armor that looked older than human spaceflight, decorated with symbols Yuna did not recognize. Behind him came 4 Raxar warriors, each one massive and armed. But they stayed back. The old one walked forward alone. The Kelvari guards raised their weapons. "Stand down," Yuna said. "You don't give orders here," Vreth hissed. "Stand down, or we all die." Something in her voice made the guards hesitate. The old Raxar watched this exchange with his single eye. Then, slowly, he smiled. It was not a friendly smile. Raxar smiles never were, but it held something like respect. "I am Kale," he said. His voice was deep and rough, like rocks grinding together. "Patriarch of the Silver Claw Pack, father of many, grandfather of more. Great-grandfather of the cubs you stole from the ice." Yuna stepped forward. She was tiny compared to him. Her head barely reached his chest. But she did not look away. "I didn't steal them. I saved them. You took what was not yours. I found 3 children freezing to death. Their parents were dead. No one else would help them, so I did." Kale leaned down, bringing his scarred face close to hers. His breath was hot and smelled of meat. His teeth were longer than her fingers. "Why?" he asked. The question hung in the air. Why would a human risk her life for Raxar? Why would she walk through a killing storm? Why would she hold enemy children against her body and give them her warmth? Every alien in the docking bay waited for her answer. The Kelvari, the Velans, the Dreth, Take, Commander Vreth. They all wanted to understand. Yuna thought about all the complicated answers she could give. About politics and peace and the future of the galaxy. About showing the Raxar that humans were not their enemies. About proving that kindness was stronger than war. But those weren't the real answers. The real answer was simpler. They were cold, she said. They were alone. They were children. Kale stared at her. His single eye searched her face, looking for lies, for hidden meanings, for the trick that must be there. He found nothing but truth. "Among my people," he said slowly, "we do not save what is not ours. We do not protect what is not pack. The universe is harsh. The weak die. The strong survive. This is the way of predators. And yet," Yuna said, "your own daughter and her mate died trying to protect their cubs. They didn't run. They didn't leave them behind. They curled around them and gave them every bit of warmth they had left." Kale's eye widened. For a moment, the ancient predator looked old, tired, sad. "You saw this? I saw their bodies. I saw how they died." Yuna's voice was soft now. "They were good parents. Patriarch. They loved their children. They would have done anything to save them, and they failed. No, they bought enough time for me to arrive. They kept the cubs alive long enough for someone to help." Yuna reached out and, very carefully, touched Kale's armored chest. "Your family did not fail. They passed the duty to someone else, and I carried it." Kale did not pull away from her touch. He stood very still, this ancient warrior who had killed more enemies than Yuna could imagine. And slowly, something changed in his face. "I have lived for many years," he said. "I have seen many things. I have fought many battles, but I have never seen a predator who protects what is not hers. I have never seen warmth given to those who might become enemies." He stepped back. And then, to the shock of every alien in the docking bay, Kale knelt. The patriarch of the Silver Claw Pack, one of the most powerful Raxar alive, knelt before a small human woman. He took her hand in his massive paw and pressed his forehead against her palm. "You have shown us something we did not believe existed," he said. "A predator who gives warmth to strangers. A softness that is not weakness. A heart that burns in the cold." He looked up at her, and his golden eye was bright. "The cubs are yours," he said. "You saved them. You warmed them. You are their pack now. I will not take them from you." Yuna felt tears on her face. They should know their people. They should know where they came from, and they will. But they will also know you. They will know that a human loved them when no one else would. Kale stood, towering over her again. "Raise them well. Human. Teach them what you are. Perhaps they will teach us the same." He turned and walked back to his shuttle. His warriors followed. At the door, he stopped and looked back. "The war between my people and the Union is old and bloody," he said. "I cannot end it alone. But I can tell others what I have seen here today. A human who walked into death for Raxar children. A warmth that defies everything we understand." He smiled his terrible, ancient smile. "Perhaps we have been wrong about your species. Perhaps you are not the soft prey we believed. Perhaps you are something else entirely." And the shuttle door closed, the ship lifted off, and the galaxy held its breath, waiting to see what would happen next. 5 years had passed since the blizzard on Velrath 7. Yuna stood on the observation deck of Harmony Station, watching ships come and go through the viewport. The station was new, built in neutral space, designed to be a place where different species could meet and talk and learn to understand each other. It was one of many changes that had happened since that frozen night. Behind her, she heard heavy footsteps. She smiled without turning around. "You're late, Bomb." The young Raxar who walked up beside her was no longer a cub. He stood taller than Yuna now, his silver fur sleek and well-groomed, his golden eyes bright with intelligence. But when he looked at her, there was still something soft in his expression. Something that remembered being held against her warmth when he was small and scared. "The ambassador from Kelvar wanted to discuss the new trade agreement," Bomb said. His voice was deep, but gentle in a way that other Raxar found strange. "He's worried that giving humans access to certain technologies will make them too powerful." Yuna laughed. "Humans? Too powerful? We're the smallest major species in the Union. You're also the most confusing. He doesn't understand why your people keep adopting members of other species. He says it's unnatural. We adopted you, didn't we?" Bomb smiled, showing his teeth. On any other Raxar, it would have been threatening. On him, it just looked happy. "You did! And look how well that turned out." They stood together in comfortable silence, watching the ships. After a moment, 2 more figures joined them. Isul had grown into something her ancestors would not have recognized. She wore the uniform of the Xenobiological Research Corps, the same organization Yuna had once belonged to. Her clever golden eyes had not changed. She still watched everything, still learned, still remembered. But now she used those skills to study life instead of hunt it. "The samples from the ice worms came back," she said. "You were right, Yuna. They're not native to Velrath 7. They were transported there millions of years ago, probably by the precursors." "I knew it," Yuna said. "The genetic markers were too clean to be natural evolution. You always did have good instincts." Isul touched Yuna's shoulder gently, a gesture she had learned from humans, not Raxar. "The Research Council wants to name the discovery after you. The Yuna pattern. They should name it after you. You did all the real work. I learned from the best." The 4th member of their family arrived last. Hainel was the smallest of the 3 Raxar, and he always would be. The cold had done something to him that night in the crashed ship, something that stunted his growth but sharpened his mind. He walked with a slight limp, a reminder of frostbite that had never fully healed. But his eyes were the brightest of all. He did not speak. He simply walked to Yuna's side and stood there, close enough that their shoulders touched. After 5 years, he still did not like to be far from her. After 5 years, she still did not mind. The assembly starts in an hour, Take said, appearing in the doorway. He had aged in the past 5 years. There was gray in his hair now, and lines around his eyes, but he was smiling. Are you ready? Yuna took a deep breath. As ready as I'll ever be. The assembly hall was the largest room on Harmony Station. Representatives from every major species in the galaxy had gathered here. Kelvari in their heated suits, Velans in their protective bubbles, Dreth standing tall on their many legs, humans sitting among them like they belonged, and, for the first time in recorded history, Raxar, Patriarch Kale, had died 2 years ago, peacefully, in his sleep. He had lived long enough to see the first peace talks begin. He had lived long enough to see his great-grandchildren grow up, loved and safe. He had called Yuna one last time before he passed. You changed everything, he had said, his voice weak but still proud. You showed us what warmth could mean. Do not let that fire go out. She had promised she would not. Now she stood before the assembly, a small human woman who had walked into a blizzard and come back with a new future in her arms. 5 years ago, she said, I made a choice. It was not a political choice. It was not a strategic choice. It was simply the only choice I could make and still be human. She looked out at the faces watching her. So many species. So many differences. So many reasons to hate and fear and fight. I found 3 children dying in the cold. They were not my species. They were not my people. By every logical measure, they were my enemies. But when I looked at them, I did not see enemies. I saw children, scared, alone, cold. She paused, gathering herself. I have been asked many times why I did it. Politicians want to know if it was a strategy. Scientists want to know if it was instinct. Philosophers want to know if it was morality. She smiled. The truth is simpler. I did it because I could not walk away. Because being human means we carry warmth inside us. And we cannot help but share it. Because we look at the universe, with all its cold and darkness, and we refuse to let it make us cold too. Bomb stepped forward to stand beside her. Then Isul. Then Hainul. 3 Raxar, standing with their human mother before the gathered galaxy. These are my children, Yuna said. They have Raxar blood and human hearts. They are predators who have learned to protect. They are warriors who have chosen peace. They are proof that what we are born as does not have to be what we become. She looked at the Raxar delegation, warriors and diplomats, who had once hated humans, who had once thought them weak and foolish. We do not ask you to become like us, she said. We do not ask you to abandon your nature. We only ask you to consider that there might be more than one way to be strong. That protecting the vulnerable is not weakness. That warmth, shared freely, can build something that war never could. The assembly was silent. Yuna felt her heart pounding. Had she said enough? Had she said too much? Would any of it matter? Then, slowly, a Raxar warrior in the front row stood. He was young, with bright golden eyes and silver fur unmarked by scars. He pressed his fist to his chest, in the Raxar salute of respect. For the cubs you saved, he said, for the warmth you gave, for showing us what we could not see. Another Raxar stood. Then another. Then more. Until the entire Raxar delegation was on their feet. And then, to Yuna's shock, a Kelvari stood. Cold-blooded, logical, always suspicious of humans. But he stood. For the courage to walk into the cold, he said. For the madness that we now understand is love. One by one, species across the hall rose to their feet. Velans in their bubbles. Dreth on their many legs. Humans with tears in their eyes. Yuna stood in the center of it all, surrounded by her children, surrounded by a galaxy that was finally learning what humanity had always known, that the universe was cold, that the darkness was vast, that survival was hard and cruel and unforgiving, but warmth could be shared. Light could be carried. And love, freely given, could change everything. After the assembly, Yuna walked alone to the observation deck. The cubs, no, not cubs anymore. Her children were celebrating with the delegations, making connections, building the future. She stood at the viewport and looked out at the stars. She thought about her grandmother, who had taught her that kindness was not a transaction. She thought about Take, who had followed her into the blizzard. She thought about Kale, who had knelt before her and seen something new. She thought about three small bodies, frozen and afraid, pressed against her heart in a crashed ship while the wind screamed outside. Hanul found her there, as he always did. He stood beside her, his golden eyes reflecting the starlight. "What are you thinking about?" he asked quietly. Yuna smiled. "I'm thinking about warmth. We almost didn't survive that night." "No, we almost didn't." Hanul was quiet for a moment. Then he leaned down and pressed his forehead against her shoulder, the Raxar gesture of deep love, the one that Kael had taught them. "Thank you," he said, "for not leaving us, for not letting us freeze." Yuna reached up and touched his face, her small human hand against his silver fur. "That's what humans do," she said. "We carry fire inside us. And we share it with anyone who needs it. Even if they might burn us. Even enemies? Especially enemies. Because the only way to stop having enemies is to start seeing them as something else." Hanul made that purring sound he had made as a cub, the one that meant safety, contentment, home. "The galaxy is lucky to have humans," he said. Yuna laughed softly. "The galaxy thinks we're insane. Maybe that's the same thing." They stood together at the viewport, human and Raxar, mother and son, watching the stars wheel by in their endless dance. And somewhere out in the cold, dark universe, in stations and ships and planets scattered across 1,000 light years, other species were telling the story. The story of a human who walked into a blizzard. The story of warmth given freely. The story of predator cubs who became ambassadors for peace. They were still trying to understand it. They would try for generations, but the story would spread. And with every telling, the fire would grow, because that was what humans did. They carried warmth, and they never let it die.